you start applying materials in SketchUp, you may find that you're not satisfied with SketchUp's default materials, and you want to add materials of your own. This too is relatively simple. So there are two types of materials that you can add, one that is color-based and one that is picture-based. So color-based materials means just that. It's a color that you're adding to your palette. So let's say that you want to choose a Sherwin Williams color for your SketchUp model. Let's go to the Sherwin Williams website and actually choose a color. So here I am, and I'm just going to click Explore Color. And then I'm going to do Explore All Paint Colors so that I can see the full palette of Sherwin Williams paint selections. So beautiful colors, lots of great things to choose from. I'm just going to kind of randomly choose one. Let's try this one, Mariner. So I like this color. I want to put this in my SketchUp model. So I'm going to go to View Details. And what I love about the Sherwin Williams website is it kind of previews what the color would look like in a space or on a house if you wanted to. That is one bright color for a house. But yeah, you can definitely check it out. Now what I'm looking for is this little area called Details. So Details gives me an RGB formula or a hex value or an LRV. It's actually this formula that I'm looking for right here. So RGB stands for red, green, blue, and that is something that I can put into SketchUp to get this exact color. So you have to remember this formula right here. So 110, 194, 196. All right, so I'm going to go back to SketchUp and I am going to add a new material. We don't want to change the formula of an existing paint swatch in SketchUp. We just want to kind of add to the list. So to add a new material, it's this button right here. And if you hover your mouse, it says Create Material. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this window pops up. So I'm going to go from top to bottom right now. So here I need to name my material. I am going to use the name of Sherwin Williams, and I'm going to do SW for Sherwin Williams, and I'm going to name it Mariner because that's what the color was of that particular paint that I wanted to use. The next thing that I need to do is I need to choose the color. So obviously the color wheel is going to be really hard to do that with. So click on the scroll bar and choose RGB. Now I can put in that formula that they had, which was 110, 194, and 196. And sure enough, there is that color. The texture we don't need to worry too much about, and nor do we need to do opacity. Now if we were going to make this glass, then we could definitely play with the opacity or the translucentness, the see-through parts in layman's term. That's what opacity does. But really just for colors, it's just these top two things that I need to worry about. So go ahead and click OK. Now you can see that that color shows up, and it always is going to show up when I have in model selected. So yes, you can choose like carpets and fabrics, but if you want that color again, go to in model. So just click on it, and again remember we have a group, so we have to edit the group first, and then we can click on it. It becomes a paint bucket, and then we can apply that color right to the model. Now what happens when we want to apply a pattern that's not in SketchUp to our model? So again, let's just do this. I'm going to edit this group, come here, and let's look at wood flooring. So what you can see is that this is pretty seamless. You can definitely not tell that anything is going on that's kind of weird. I'm going to try another one in stone, and I'm going to have you look at the difference. So here you can see almost like a checkered pattern. Now this does not have a checkered pattern, but you can definitely tell that there's columns and there's also rows. So what's happening is that SketchUp is taking this picture and it's putting it like right in the center, and then it's copying it over and over. So it's taking this picture and placing it right next to each other, all the way up, all the way to the right, all the way down, all the way to the left. it's doing the same thing here, but the problem is that this one is seamless and this one is not. So the challenge of putting patterns or textures into SketchUp is to find a swatch, which is what we call these little squares, that's seamless. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to Google, and what I did originally was I looked for tileable wood floor swatch. And let me show you what I'm looking for. I am looking for wood that if I placed it next to each other could create a seamless look. Like this one right here is a great example. Here's a dark piece, and if I were to place this whole swatch right underneath and line it up, this dark piece would go into this dark piece. This light piece would go into this light piece. It actually would work. The problem is that this particular image has a watermark, so I can't use it for this particular image. Never use something that has a watermark. But as you go and look through swatches, for instance, this one looks like it could be okay until you realize that this is a full plank and this one's only half. So if we were to try and copy this image over and over, there would always be a little sliver of wood. This one would probably be great, but again it has the watermark image. This one would probably work, except that the grout line shows on all of them except the top one. So looking for seamless images is actually really tough. Sometimes what you need to do is you need to switch up what you're looking for. So instead of tileable wood floor swatch, let's look up seamless wood floor texture. Now we're starting to see some interesting patterns. Let's look. This one actually might be seamless. So dark to dark, looks like that color's similar, and you can even look at the pattern on the wood and see that it's going to match. So let's look at this a little closer. Yeah, that could potentially work. So let's right click, save image as. And I was trying some before that weren't so seamless, so I'll show you what those look like. But I'm just going to do wood floor 1. You can name them whatever you want to. And I'm just saving it somewhere where I can remember. I actually made a file that says finishes so that I could know where to find all the finishes for my project on my computer. And then just click save. Alright, we're going to come back to SketchUp. And I'm going to create a new material just like we did with color. So this time I'm going to put wood floor 1. So I always name it the same thing I name it on my computer. And then I'm going to come down to this little guy right here. So I'm going to click on that folder and I'm going to choose that wood flooring and I'm going to click open. I'm not going to worry about the color wheel. I'm not going to worry about the opacity. I'm just making sure that my picture shows up here and that I have a check mark where it says use texture image. Click OK. And wood floor shows up, and you'll notice that this is all alphabetical. So when you're in model, you'll see that it's at the very end since it starts with a W. So I'm going to click on it and then I'm going to paint it. Darn, it is a non-tileable wood. Although it's not terrible, it just came in super small. So maybe what we need to do is we just need to make it bigger. So let's go to edit. And right now it's at 1 foot. Let's try 7 feet. 7's a lucky number. Well, that's not too terrible. You can see like there's some strange little marks that you didn't notice otherwise. But as you zoom out, it's not the worst thing in the world. So it could be doable. And you can also play with this a little bit. What does 5 feet look like? That's kind of getting tileable. How about 10 feet? You want to keep it still realistic. You don't want these huge boards because there's no way that anybody would ever put huge boards into the space. But, you know, that's not really too terrible. Again, what we're trying to avoid is this checkerboard look to it. And yeah, it is interesting how you can see some swirls in there that you never saw before. So it's really all about searching for the right image that's going to create the right look in SketchUp. Now, 3D Warehouse does have some patterns that you probably could bring in and do the same method. You can maybe Google seamless swatches for interiors. That could be a way of looking up things. There could be swatches that furniture companies or wood flooring companies, you could go to like Home Depot and see if they have any swatches that might work. But really, it's about exploration. It's about finding the right kind of material and then just creating a new material. Now, some people ask, okay, so the wood slats are going from left to right. How do I get them to go from up and down? It's a little tougher, so what I usually have to do is I usually have to take the swatch into Photoshop, rotate it, save it as a JPEG, and then import it into SketchUp. So I don't know another way to like take SketchUp stuff and rotate that. I have yet to figure that one out. So if you guys find out, put it in the comments of this video and then we can share that information with each other. I'm still learning SketchUp. I'm still at an intermediate level, so I'm definitely open to learning from my students. That's a really great part about being a teacher. So yeah, let's help each other out and see what we can do to find out how can we make SketchUp materials change directions. All right, guys, so for the most part, that is how you go about creating a new material. Just watch your swatches, make sure that they're seamless as possible, and then you can always play with the scale and you can also play with the color of these things. So if you want a bright green wood floor, there you go.